After the Darkness was the theme for this project, and the idea was to have this black background and then light them so that they would be coming from the darkness, out of the end of the war and all the atrocities that they had to deal with. That moment when the war was ending, we wanted to capture that in the way that the light played an important part, that they're sort of away from the backdrop and then they're lit up coming from the darkness and out into the light of non-war. You're working with people that are 100 years old. I think the oldest was 104. And some of them don't hear very well, can't stand up for long. We have to give them breaks. Make sure they understand that if they want to take a break, they can. It's just trying to be as helpful to them and make sure that they don't put undue stress on them when taking their photos. Also, you're trying to bring out an emotion in them. The other hard bit is that you've got it asking them to look in a certain place. And because their sight is really impaired, you want them to look at a certain place, so you ask them to kind of follow your voice. In all, I think they were fantastic. They were all very conscious about what was going on and how we were doing the photographs and understood what we were doing. The thing is, even though you're doing lots of this and moving their heads slightly, there's that one frame that just stands out from the other frames, even if it's a slight different movement. The only shame is that they don't see the photographs as clearly as you and I would, but some of them do, and some of them have the equipment that Blind Veterans kindly gives to them, that they can look at stuff through magnifying glasses or special equipment that enhances the magnifying of the picture, so that helps as well. I keep on coming back to Blind Veterans UK because they're a charity that do so much good work for veterans, and not just ones that have gone from in D-Day and VE-Day and were there for the Second World War, but continuously help blind veterans. And being a photographer, sight is the most important thing. And I always felt that I'd like to give something back to sort of, if I didn't have my sight, what would happen? So there was that kind of underlining thing. Whenever I speak to them, I always ask them the question, how does it help you? And they all say it helps them such a great deal. So I'm really happy to be involved in something like that. They were all so full of life, every one of them, and willing to share their stories and remembering their stories at such a great age. But, you've got people like Matt, who was one of the first SAS soldiers. When I was taking his photos, you could really see a sense in his eyes that this guy not to be messed with. And the reason why he was an SAS soldier, you can see it in his eyes. One of the moments that I remember, there was one story that really sort of understood about being the eyes on that moment in history, was John Haddock, the last veteran I photographed out of everybody. He was part of the crew that flew the Halifax bombers. He talked about after the war, one of his things was to take papers back from the Nuremberg trials. And he said he remembered being in the courtroom, seeing the Nazis, high profile Nazis sitting on benches, and just hearing that he was the eyes of that moment in history, and here I am taking his photograph, really brought it home about why I did this project and how much these veterans went through and what they saw in history that you read in books, but he's in front of me telling me the story of what he saw. Although they all are my favourite in some way or another. I think it's really important to commemorate anniversaries like these because it's an aging population. If we don't commemorate or note down their stories and take their photos, it's lost forever. It's really important that we recognise that and continuously try and make sure that we get these photos of these veterans and tell their story. They should never be forgotten what they went through. To hear it firsthand from these veterans and to hear their stories is quite inspiring, and it really inspires me. So I'd like people to see and feel when they look at the photographs. I just want people to see that they've lived full lives, to see their story and to look into their eyes and know that they've been through this but have come through the other side. That's why I keep coming back, to get inspired by these people that have gone through these atrocities in the beginning of their lives and still managed to go through it and made a life for themselves and grown old, still able to tell their story.